up, friends? My name is Joss from squibblesreads and welcome back to another Top 5 Wednesday. Today we are going to be talking about my top 5 books of 2015. Top 5 Wednesday was started by Lainey over at Ginger Reads Lainey, and I will leave a link to her channel in the down bar below. Before we get started, I've been thinking about going to Book Expo America or BookCon 2016. If any of you guys are going to either one or have been to either one in the past, please let me know down in the comments. I would love to hear what you have to say about them. Alright, so getting started with my top 5 books. The first book that I'm going to mention is actually a series of books. They are the Cormoran Strike series by Robert Galbraith. Robert Galbraith is the pen name for J.K. Rowling. This is a series of adult mystery books. So Cormoran Strike is a private detective and he runs his own agency. And in each one of these books, it features a different mystery that he has been hired to solve. The writing is really fantastic. It is your classic J.K. Rowling writing. I've only read the first 2 books, The Cuckoo's Calling and The Silkworm, and I have become so attached to Cormoran and his assistant Robin. In my last video, I talked about how I would like to read more books with protagonists who are not of the dominant discourse, and Cormoran Strike is one of these protagonists. I've actually never seen a book with a protagonist with a disability. Cormoran Strike is a veteran, and he had part of one of his legs amputated after he was really badly injured. And so part of one of his legs is prosthetic. And throughout these books, you see the struggles and the experience and the worldview of someone who has that disability, which is really refreshing to me. And of course, J.K. Rowling did total justice to it, and I really appreciate that. And another one of my favorite books of 2015, I actually just finished a few days ago. It is Crown of Midnight by Sarah J. Maas, the second book in the Throne of Glass series. Except it's just so much better than the first book. There's so much more action, and we really get to see how these characters progress and how they progress together. I know some people say that romance and a lot of interpersonal stuff is not super necessary in a lot of fantasy or sci-fi and things that are not contemporary, but I really like that. I think it really plays into who I am as a person and what I'm studying and my career. And my favorite part of the book was that Kale was the biggest superstar of the book. And of course, as I talked about in a previous video, my boyfriend's name is almost identical to his name, so I love the Captain of the Guard. The third book on my list, you guys probably know what it is because I literally talk about it in every single one of my videos, and I've written on the little blurbs that I write for myself before every video not to talk about this book because I talk about it so much, but it's Hate List by Jennifer Brown. It's about a girl named Valerie, and Valerie's boyfriend was the perpetrator of a school shooting, and Hate List talks about her journey after the shooting. But Jennifer Brown was totally unafraid to make all of her characters vulnerable to feeling things and feeling really deep emotions that could very well be felt after a big trauma like this. My favorite part of this book was that Valerie's relationship with Mr. Healer, who's her therapist, was a really accurate, ethical depiction of a counseling relationship. He provided a facilitative space for her to grow at her own pace and absolutely didn't push his own agenda on her. And it was written in a really fluid, organic, almost magical way, and I just loved it. And the second last book I'm going to talk about is a book that I read before my time here on BookTube, All the Bright Places by Jennifer Niven, and they just announced that it won the 2015 Goodreads Choice Award for Young Adult Fiction, so yay! All the Bright Places has been really controversial, but I really loved it because it almost seemed autobiographical, and after reading a little bit more about Jennifer Niven, I feel like she really injected the book with her own depiction and her own subjective experience of grief in her own life. I thought it was a really beautiful portrayal of mental illness and of grief, and I think it was definitely my favorite contemporary of the year, if not my favorite book of the year. And finally, one of my favorite books of the year. You guys probably know what it is. I have yelled about this before, but it is Illuminae by Amie Kaufman and Kristoff. I almost skipped a really important class to finish this book, but I didn't. I'm not going to talk too much about the plot because this book really has to be experience. This book is an experience. But basically it is set in 2575. There's been a big trauma, a big attack, and the people are separated into 3 different carriers, and the book is written through emails and transcripts and IMs and pictures of the people within the carrier and also between carriers. It's full of action, there's some romance, there's some flirting, there's weird IM language, there's death and fighting and robots, and it's set in space, and it's just so good. If you're gonna read one book for the rest of the year, I would definitely recommend Illuminae. I'm so excited for the second one to come out. They just recently announced that it is called Gemina. But not only was it really exciting, but it also touched on some things that I have studied before, and one of them was the role of resiliency after a big community trauma. So resiliency basically refers to the problem-solving skills, the resources, and how people manage trust within the community, and also how the community trusts other communities that may be able to help them, and how to gauge how much pride to conserve after a trauma as opposed to how much to reach out for help. It also talked about humanity and how much humanity a person has after a trauma like this. Do they feel guilt after killing a human being? Do they feel guilt about thinking about killing a human being? How much guilt do they feel about people who they may have lost in the trauma? I don't really read a lot of sci-fi, so I don't know if this is like a really common theme, but I think it was executed really well, especially through the medium that they chose to use. Between All the Bright Places and Illuminae, they were definitely my top 2 books of 2015. I will leave a link to my December 2015 TBR in which I yell more about Illuminae in the down bar below, so please go ahead and check that out. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!